Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first of our 2021 PA Forum Zoom series. We're great to be back, and we are kicking off, first of all, with one of our In Conversation events. These are going to be monthly events that we'll be running via Zoom, interviewing some of our members to find out a little bit more about them, their journey, and how they can give advice and support to you should you be looking to implement something new into your role this year or looking to take on board a different project, etc. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure today to introduce Fiona Burlow. Hi Fiona, how are you?
Hello, hi everyone. Yes, I'm well, thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So Fiona, you have well, you're still at Eversheds-Sutherland, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
So tell us, how did it all begin for you? How did your career kick off? How did you get started?
Yeah, okay. So I graduated from university in 2012. So I studied history because I thought it was quite a broad subject, transferable skills, etc. And also just interested me. And I guess I'd always kind of wanted to save the planet in some way. It was a very broad idea when I was younger, which has definitely focused down a little bit more as I've had more experience. And honestly, when I left university, I didn't have a clue how I was going to do it, how I was going to kind of get into the field of it. And ironically, I always said I was never going to work for a law firm or like a big accountancy firm or anything, because I didn't want to work for a corporate giant. But here I am. And I guess my first experience was with a company called Fine Energy. And what we did was we found and developed sites for onshore small-scale wind turbines. So this was largely working with farmers who had excess land, which wasn't making any profit if it wasn't being used. And we focus a lot on community engagement. So that was just kind of letting people know that if there was a wind turbine in the vicinity, it wouldn't cause health problems and it wouldn't attract UFOs, which is actually one of the things people thought. Yeah, honestly, the horror stories that people make up about wind turbines is brilliant. Some people write a book about it.
Okay.
Yeah, some people used to think that overnight, these were serious conspiracy theorist people, would think that overnight time the wind turbines would like get up and like walk, which obviously doesn't
Oh,
happen.
God. Wow, okay.
I
Is that when
know.
they think that the crop circles would be
Yeah,
up?
I
Wow.
guess so. Maybe they think they're working together. I don't know.
Yeah.
Some of the feedback was brilliant that we had.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so and then just because of everything that was kind of going on in the world, and particularly in the UK, funding stopped for anything to do with renewable energy for a short time. And so my career was looking a little bit unstable, which is how I kind of landed my role as the PA at Eversheds-Sutherland, which was 5 years ago now.
So how did you find that coming into that world from where you were before? Had you applied for a lot of jobs, or did you know that's kind of what you wanted to do? Was the legal sector something that you were particularly interested in?
So I'd always known about Eversheds-Sutherland just because I think a couple of the partners had been at my school. So it was just the name that we were familiar with. And Shoe Smiths as well was another one. And then I'd worked with Katie Bard beforehand. And so it was Verity who found me the position at Eversheds. And she said, you're going to love it. You're going to love the team. It's entirely you. And there hopefully will be a chance for you to kind of carve out your career there. So I started quite naively. I mean, it was completely different to where I'd worked before, where it was a tiny office. And suddenly I was somewhere where there was tea and coffee for everybody freely available, and like milk and biscuits and 9 floors of people, and it was a real shock, I think, when I first joined there. But yeah, I mean, I stuck with it, and I guess tried to find my niche. So I was really lucky with the partner that I supported, because he worked very much on an international basis. So it got me to speak to people from different teams and really start to get an understanding of the structure of Eversheds.
Oh, fantastic. So if you were speaking to somebody that might be looking to come into the PA industry then, that's never been a PA before, I think when I've had a call with the committee members, we were talking about people in hospitality, for example. Obviously that industry is being completely decimated at the moment, which is so sad to see. But
Yeah.
about people coming into the industry or thinking about whether they could become a PA or an admin support or business support professional, what would you say to those people that haven't got any experience in the industry? Because I think some people sometimes look at, oh, I've never done that before, so I don't know whether I can do it. Did you find that it was quite, when you were being interviewed, etc., were there a lot more transferable skills that you had to come into Eversheds, for example?
Absolutely. I think they are looking for strength of character. They want to know that you can enter this new type of business, which you might not have worked in before, and you can kind of rise to the challenge. Transferable skills, as you say, just being conscientious, having excellent attention to detail, great grammar skills, and then also good timekeeping skills. But I think it is quite subjective. So depending on which company you work for, you'll need to change your behaviour a little bit. So working for Eversheds, you have to be able to be really, really fast paced. So sometimes you're chasing people 6 times a day. You're like a dog with a bone, I guess. Can't let things slide. You have to get the answer from them. Whereas it might not be the same in other industries. So I think the advice I would give is just take time to learn about the teams that feed into your core group, I suppose. You don't want to kind of shut yourself off and think, okay, well, I'm a PA and I work for the corporate team in Birmingham, and that's kind of the be all and end all. The more you can kind of network with people within your business, the easier you'll understand the full life cycle process of the business.
So I guess when we were, because we're talking about when, a pre-COVID world where you were able to do that, were you within your office and be able to kind of, get to know other people and, go and have meetings with other departments and find out a little bit more about how people work?
Yeah, I think we were looking at Eversheds because even before COVID, because it's such a big international company, I mean, we're in, I think, about 60 different countries. We rely quite a lot on using a telecommunication platform in order to reach out to people. But we've also got quite a good centralized system of having different events, be that well-being, environmental, sustainability, just introducing people to the roadshow side of things, which is where you have visitors from different offices doing like a tour, I suppose. So it was really good to be able to reach out to them. And also, I think, as you know, PAs, we can completely agree that a lot of people think all we do is the expenses and book the travel. But in reality, you're doing so much more than that. So I guess, it's part of your job role to reach out to teams in finance and procurement, the catering team or the reception team or the meeting setup, reaching out to specific client partners. So I think it was encouraged at Eversheds, and I think you've just got to kind of bite the bullet and just pick up the phone and call someone if you haven't spoken to them before, because 9 times out of 10 they'll be completely fine with you.
Yeah, no, so what would you say then during that time? What was your biggest challenge? What did you find during that time when you started at Eversheds and you were growing your contact base and building your career, and what was kind of the biggest challenge that you faced there?
I think for me, it was the terminology, because I hadn't studied law, I hadn't worked in a law firm. So all these terms such as WIP, which is work in progress, and closing down time, and matter related work, they were all terms that I wasn't familiar with. And I had to pick up things that were directly related to my role. So for example, knowing how to transfer time or raise a pro forma or something like that. But then on top of that, I had to learn all the key terms that my fee earners were using as well. So if they were writing to me in shorthand, or if they were just calling me quickly to ask me to do something, I had to learn to anticipate what they were going to ask me to do. And it was hard. I mean, I did take it a little bit seriously when I first started, and bought a book off eBay about private equity and thought maybe I can learn the basics. It turns out I can't. I got probably as far as sweet equity as a term, and then thought, hang on, I'll just focus on my role rather than trying to like learn to be a lawyer.
Oh, bless you. Have you still got that book?
I have.
Oh, bless you. No, so leading up until that point, I mean, obviously, congratulations to you because you were crowned PA of the Year in 2019, which is amazing. So up until that point, what did you do within your career? If you can kind of give people a little bit more of an insight as to how you kind of got to that stage, really, from when you were nominated and all the way through the process. What did you kind of do before that to be recognized in that sense, to be nominated as well?
Yeah, so as I said, I was really fortunate to work with a particular partner whose career accelerated as we started working together. So as his career accelerated into being like head of corporate for the West Midlands and senior office partner, it passed on a lot of opportunities to me, and also really helped my confidence to grow, because suddenly I was dealing with matters on an international scale, but I was also looking after all the events for the Birmingham office. So it went from being, I suppose, a traditional corporate PA to suddenly having so many more responsibilities. And I think the more challenges you take on and are successful with, the more confident you become and the more ambitious you become as well. So I just had a really wide ranging level of experience, which I might not have got if I hadn't have worked for that particular fee earner. And along with that as well, Eversheds combined with an American law firm called Eversheds-Sutherland. So internally, lots of things were changing. So we were having a stronger focus on our sustainability objectives. And one of the events that was introduced was called the One Award, and there was a winner in the UK. Actually, I think it's a winner in the LLP offices, which for Eversheds-Sutherland is a mix of UK and European offices, and then a winner in the US offices as well. So you can get nominated for that, and then I was fortunate enough to win the first award for the combination, and you get to put some money towards a charity, which means a lot to you in terms of environmental and sustainability. So that was one of the things that kind of got me thinking, yeah, you know what, I might be able to get a little bit more involved in terms of what we're doing outside of the fee earning side into an area which we call international operations.
Okay, well, congratulations, firstly, on winning that award. That's
Thanks. It was a couple of
fantastic.
years ago now.
But as you say, I think all of this has contributed to building your confidence. And as you say, you were working for a partner that was growing, and I think when you are working with somebody like that, you'll obviously grow with them. And so I guess, would you say winning that award internally for the business, and obviously with the merger of the companies and sustainability coming up, was that kind of your ears pricking up and thinking, oh, now this is the opportunity I've been waiting for, this is kind of what I'm really passionate about?
I think so. And it was the first time I'd got kind of in contact with my current manager now, Claire Goody, who's the EHS manager for all LLP offices. And once I kind of got wind of her name and she was the go-to person, I think I bothered her for a few years. I was very enthusiastic, I think, and I offered to kind of redesign the recycling posters. I wanted to get involved in the EHS committee. I wanted to try and get the Birmingham office involved in more CR related activities. And so I kind of just built up a rapport with her, and spoke with my previous manager as well, who was always aware that I wanted to kind of branch out as much as possible. And then I think following the PA Awards, I guess Eversheds-Sutherland decided to give me the opportunity of going on secondment, which is what I did for a year.
So how did that conversation go? So obviously, I remember when we spoke about it. I think it was quite quickly, wasn't it, after you got
Yeah.
the award? So we'll come back to the awards in a bit, but just to kind of touch on that. So when you kind of came back into the office and you'd won the award, what was the feeling like there for you? How did Eversheds react to that? How are your colleagues, your the partner that you work with, etc.?
Yeah, it was amazing. The Fionas were so lovely about it.
Mm.
I hadn't said too much about it really, just because we were up for a team award as well. So I didn't want to kind of draw the attention away from all the work that the team did. So I think when they had got wind, because HR came with us on the evening, and I think they let the partner know that I'd won. And when I came into the office, there was a real sense of I don't know, excitement, and people were asking me how it went, and they bought me some flowers, which was so lovely. And I think it kind of made the other teams as well possibly think, maybe we want to be interested in the PA awards next year. We'd never really done anything like this for the PAs. We'd done lots of awards for the Fionas. But this was just kind of showing people that they do need to be recognised and they do need to be rewarded for the fantastic work that they do. So it's a really good atmosphere. They put information on the Facebook page and the LinkedIn pages, and it was just really nice, I suppose, to be recognised for it.
Fantastic. So when you came back into the office, were you kind of called in to kind of have a chat about this brand new opportunity that was available?
Well, I'd spoken with my manager, I think, at my last PGR, which is like a quarterly review, and just said, look, I'd really like the opportunity of working more to do with sustainability if something came up. And it was kind of put on the back burner. And then just one morning, I got a call from the director who's in charge of the project group that I work in, and he just offered me the opportunity. He just said, would you like to do us a comment, see if you like it, see if you can make any progress in it, if you get on with the team, if it's what you want to do. So it was really, really quick. Yeah, it was.
Wow. So I mean, you must have felt quite overwhelmed that this has happened quite quickly.
Yeah, it was a really good year, actually, 2019. It lost a little bit of I suppose momentum in 2020, but it just kind of topped off the year, I think, really, really nicely. And it was nice to think that they thought I could do the secondment, because it wasn't like I was necessarily joining another individual who was doing exactly the same role.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit more autonomy in what I was doing. And it's worked out really well. So I took the opportunity of going permanent as well. So I'm now a permanent member of the property and facilities team in international operations.
That's amazing. I mean, did they give you, like, was it a blank piece of paper when you started? Like, how did it, when you went into that seconded position, are you now purely focusing that? Are you still supporting the partner that you were working with before? And did you have that kind of blank piece of paper where you could, just start writing a new story, so to speak, or trying to think of ideas to help and support the business?
So there was a structure in place just under my manager, Claire Goody. So she had kind of already done the key things of setting up an EHS committee, of doing an energy policy, an annual report, which was looking at our carbon footprint. So we had started as a company to be doing these things anyway. But because our peer law firms were doing so much more, the first part of it was basically looking at what they were doing, what our competitors were doing. Can we kind of catch up with them in any way? What could be the next steps for us? So obviously you have to get approval for budgets and
Yeah.
everything like that, but they were quite open to the ideas of I guess setting more ambitious targets. So the biggest project that I've worked on currently is the Science-Based Targets Initiative, which is where you set carbon reduction targets which are scientifically based. So they ensure that you are contributing to limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees in line with the Paris Agreement of 2018. So that's probably the biggest project we've ever done, and it's focusing on all 26 of the LLP offices as well. So
So how is it to bring those offices? How was it bringing those offices together? I mean, do you work? Was it challenging in the first instance? Did you kind of did you? Or is there one of you effectively in each of the different offices that work together collectively, or do you represent a group of offices together? How does it kind of work in that respect?
So we have fortnightly catch-ups with representatives from all of the offices. So the job titles can change slightly, but essentially they are kind of head of facilities or the office manager for that particular office. So we catch up with them once every fortnight and go through the list of objectives that we're working towards. So it was really daunting to begin with, because these are people that you've never spoken to before, and you don't really know what you're doing either in your new role. So Claire was amazing though at kind of guiding me through that. And I am quite sad. I really, really like the Eurovision Song Contest. So I really like joining the international calls, because they'd be like, hi, it's Doa. And I just loved that. So it was really good kind of building up a network of people with the international offices as well. But it has been a learning progress for everybody, because all of a sudden we're saying, we really need to get your water consumption data now. Can you speak to your landlord or your managing agent and try and get the figures for us? So I think it's been quite a steep learning curve for them as well.
So how is it going in terms of, obviously you've got so many offices, big offices as well. How is it going towards that, with the reductions? Is it, are you finding that a lot of people are getting on board, and what sort of changes could you make within your own office potentially that could really, really help with the sustainability side of things?
Yeah, so I think people are getting more involved now, just because there will be published official targets that we're working towards, which I think makes it easier to get people involved and enthusiastic about what you're doing, because it's part of the greater good, I guess. And in all honesty, the fact that COVID happened and a lot of people started working from home will probably be the biggest contributor to us minimizing our impact on the environment, because our real estate portfolio will shrink, less people will be commuting in. So a big part of the discussion is, not just for us, but as an industry standard, is trying to figure out how we're going to calculate people's emissions from working from home, because we can't just say, oh, there's only 20 people in the office now, so we only need to account for that for our global carbon footprint. In fact, we still need to take into account the carbon footprint of every single one of our employees in the LLP offices. So there's going to be a lot more changes going forward, I think. We're going to have to kind of reassess our baseline. And it's going to be challenging, because we need to try and persuade people to purchase renewable energy in their homes, because we can do that in our offices, we can make that decision, but it's a really big ask to say to colleagues, we'd really like you to change your energy provider. So we're looking at different initiatives and ways we can help at the moment.
And I guess as well, it would probably be, I would imagine there would need to be some, I don't know whether some corporate companies might support, but I guess them help and support with the government to be able to, you know, renewable energy can be more expensive. So obviously, if you're living at home, you've got a big family, or,
Yeah.
if we're all going through really challenging times at the moment. It's kind of, do you make that jump, and how do you make that jump, and is that going to be kind of supplemented in any way, or to help and support people get on the renewable energy ladder, so to speak? So it's such a shame, really, in a way, because you've worked so hard to put all of these things in place for the workplace, and now the workplace has been completely shaken,
Yeah.
and everyone's working from home. So whilst, the commuting going into cities and working within the offices has reduced, I would imagine, carbon footprint considerably. People are using more energy, etc. at home, aren't they? So I watched, it was quite moving, actually. I watched, I don't know if anyone's watched it on BBC, I Am Greta. I watched that the other day. It's really inspiring. She's an incredible person, and what she's managed to achieve is just crazy. When she got the boat over to America, because she refused to fly over there
Yeah.
to go to the global energy conference, and it's just, yeah, absolutely amazing. So if what are you doing at the moment? Are you advising, or do you think throughout this year you'll be looking to advise people on how obviously they can save energy while they're at home, or reduce their carbon footprint further to try and obviously keep in line with company standards?
Yeah, so we are working on a document which is like a home user guide. So, for example, it's telling people how they can find out what their local councils recycle, because just because I suppose the item that you've got, say, is widely recycled, it doesn't mean that your local council can recycle that item. So it's just about being more knowledgeable about what's in place around where you live. We're also looking at whether or not we can partner up with an energy provider who might be able to offer some money back for people if they switch over to them as a renewable energy provider for their homes. We have something called an environment mailbox, so people can kind of email in with questions or suggestions, and it's just really about keeping the messaging consistent. So we constantly want to be on people's radar. We want them to know what we're doing as a business, but also how we can help them. So we try to make the activities as interactive as they can be remotely. So we use an online platform to support things such as World Food Day or Plastic Free July. So it's just twisting and tweaking things a little bit so people can still get involved from home, but feel like they are contributing to Eversheds-Sutherland, because you don't want that separation. You don't want people to suddenly not feel like they're connected to the company that they work with.
Yeah, no, definitely. That sounds like a great initiatives going on throughout the year as well. How are you finding the collaboration with, for example, when do you talk to other law firms or talk to other offices about kind of what they're doing, and how is that is that communication quite open? Would you recommend, for some people on the call or listening today, that they can reach out to people like yourself, for example, if they are working for another company, and ask those types of questions and find out that information, or is that quite sensitive information to kind of share?
So it does really depend on the company. I've been quite overwhelmed with the responses that I've got from people that I've reached out to. So a couple of other law firms, which I won't mention by name on this call, but
Yeah.
one in particular, there was an individual who really talked me through the whole science-based targets process, how we were going to kind of get the data, how much they were supported by the company which calculated their carbon footprint. So that help was amazing. And we're also part of something called the Legal Sustainability Alliance, which is a paid membership, but that's basically like a group of law firms who all come together because they want to reduce their firm's impact on the environment. And recently I've joined a working group with them, which is trying to create an industry standard for calculating emissions for working from home. So again, my advice is, if you see someone's name on a website and they've got their contact details, reach out to them, because the worst they can do is ignore you, really. And at least you've tried to reach out to them. And so far, the feedback I've had has been great. And there's also something which I wanted to talk about, which is a really, really big movement which is happening, which is, I think, initially for law firms, but they've recently got Amazon to sign up to it and support it. And it's called the Chancery Lane Project. So basically what this company, well, it's a not-for-profit organisation, but essentially what they've managed to do is unite nearly all the law firms in the world to work together to create green clauses which people can put into their precedents. So it's in terms of intellectual property, it's free, so any law firms can use them. But I think that's been probably one of the most significant improvements that have been made in the law industry for probably as long as I've been alive, to be honest.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't
Yeah.
it? So, I mean, again, it just goes to show how important collaboration is,
Mhm.
and it's not easy to get the buy-in, I would say, of those, especially the huge law firms, the SMEs, etc., trying to get everybody to working collectively to one goal. But
Mhm.
it seems like they've managed to achieve that, which is great, and hopefully that will feed out into other industries as well, or there might be the possibility of somebody setting something up for different industries as well. But
Yeah.
what about going paperless, because accountancy firms, law firms, for example, are always had, significant amounts of paper, for example, being used. How is it kind of adapting to going online? Are there things now in place for people to go online a lot more, and documentation to be shared online, because it's so confidential, isn't it, as well?
Yes, and also in terms of the different areas of law, it can be a little bit more challenging. So, for example, real estate and litigation, those areas of law still rely heavily on paper documents.
Mm.
And one of the partners, possibly a couple of the associates, were involved in quite a big UK law movement, which was kind of saying that this particular legal document didn't need to be printed, it could be emailed. So there are changes being made. We already had some strategies in place, which were looking at ways in which we can reduce how much paper we use. So pro formas, for example, we used to print out like 20 pages to fill in a couple of squares on a couple of sections of the paper, but now that's all online. So I think it's just investing in technology,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the change is the biggest, it's the biggest and most difficult thing for everybody and for any company to deal with. And I think having, when you talk to law firms or accountancy firms, particularly when people go paperless, it's such a significant change.
Yeah, it really is.
And trying to get everybody to kind of sing off the same hymn sheet as well can be quite difficult. So, well, take us back then to how was the awards process for you? Because I know some people might be familiar with the awards, for example, some people might not be familiar with the process, but how was that for you? Did you know that you were going to get nominated, or did you nominate yourself? Or if you can just, and then kind of talk us through how the process was for you.
Yeah, so the year that so I nominated myself. It was the first year, I think, that Eversheds had been invited to kind of join the awards. I don't think we'd really got involved with it before that. And I was actually on my honeymoon when the application was due. So I remember sitting in the hotel on our honeymoon, just writing out my application. And my husband was saying, it's better be worth it. So it was great though. I mean, the questions were really thought provoking, and it really made you reflect on what you were doing. And I guess the main theme throughout is that you don't want to know what our job title is. You want to know what we do, because there's such a difference. So it was great from the start. I'd never really taken part in anything like that. So really quick feedback in terms of the applications being received. It was really carefully scheduled, so you knew when you were going to get like the telephone interview or something. And then I think when I went to meet the judges for the final interview, I remember being so nervous because I'd always wanted to meet Angela Mortimer. She was one of the judges. And I
Yeah.
remember just standing outside and I was just like shaking, because I just thought I've got to do as well as I can, because I don't want the first impression to be the worst impression. But when I went in, the judges were just so friendly, and you think that seeing four faces in front of you is going to be quite scary. But it was very relaxed, and I don't know, I think because you had the chance to prepare your answers to the questions in a fashion before you went in, that helps, because you're not kind of thinking, is there going to be a curveball? Am I just going to go blank?
Yeah.
So that was absolutely fine. And then it was a bit nerve-wracking kind of waiting for it all, but it was nice because, as I said, my team was also nominated for Team of the Year. So we all got ready together, and then we made our way over. I remember it was like pouring with rain that night. I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember, but everyone was like trying to keep their hair dry and just trying to like run to get in. And I don't know, it's just really magical. I think because you were like filming it, and there were bands, and there were so many different people from so many um, different companies, and then you had the entertainment as well. It didn't seem like it was a formal go in, sit at your table and listen to people speaking kind of event.
Yeah.
It was magical, I suppose.
And then following that, you then joined us this year on the judging panel
Yes.
itself. So each year, PA of the year each year is invited to join the judging panel for the following year. So how did you find that experience for you? How was, because you were with Lucy Brazier, weren't you, for
Yes.
some of the day, and then you were also with Cam from Katie Bard. So how was that? How was that for you, meeting all of those nominees?
It was great. I mean, it was different because it was online, it was remote. So I knew Cam from kind of working in association with Katie Bard through a different number of events previously. And Lucy, I'd been to the conference. So I was really excited to kind of get the chance to work with her. But I suppose you think when you go into it that there's going to be one standout winner for every category. That's what you think, that the rest of them will kind of just like pale to insignificance, but it really wasn't like that because everybody brought their A game. And I made pages and pages and pages of notes for everything that they were saying, the examples that they were giving, just the level of energy that they were presenting as well,
Yeah.
and letting their personalities come through. So it was genuinely a real honour and privilege to get to interview all those finalist candidates.
Yeah, I think with Tracy and Narinda, obviously they're here with us today as well. So they know it's incredibly difficult. Like when you see every single person is so amazing, that's why they meet so many different people throughout the process, because it's really difficult. It's
Yeah.
like comparing apples and pears. Sometimes everybody, like you say, they bring their A game. They are always really innovative, thinking of amazing ideas, thinking of stuff outside the box that doesn't fall within their normal everyday to day job role, and things that people are doing that are going continuously above and beyond throughout the year. And when we put them in front of either, our telephone or Zoom interview panel, then the judges are just like, wow. But
Yeah.
and it's really difficult because everybody is so good. And if you were kind of giving a piece of advice, particularly for people that might be worried about nominating themselves, because that's always one thing that people, it's lovely to be nominated, but realistically it's sometimes difficult to get that engagement from either the business or the manager. So what would
Mhm.
you say about somebody if they were going to nominate themselves this year, for example?
I'd say nominate yourself every time, because I did, and I won. And if I hadn't have nominated myself, I might not have got nominated, and I wouldn't have had all the amazing opportunities that I've had through going through the PA awards process, I suppose. And also, you need to have confidence in what you're doing. So you know how hard you work, you go above and beyond. So what's the harm in letting people hear about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you could kind of give a piece of advice to anybody on the call now about kind of what they could do with sustainability. And I think we were doing in our coffee chat yesterday, we were talking about how this year more than ever, so many people are really interested in adding on things to their already existing role, for example, and making their role bigger, or trying to do something that can help and support the business, whether that be sustainability, CSR, project management, diversity and inclusion, etc. What kind of advice would you give to people that are, working at the moment? I think last year people were worried. There was worry about the roles and being put on furlough, etc. And we kind of felt, I think, as a community last year, that we were kind of, let's stay with what we're doing and keep going, because that's what the business needs, and the business is kind of, there's more important decisions going on at the moment. But I don't think that's the case at all this year, and I think this is a real big year to grab the bull by the horns and go for it.
Yeah.
What would you say to people that are looking to kind of expand their role this year and get into different things?
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right. No matter what size of the company, sustainability should be at the top of most agendas now, just because companies are having so much pressure put on them, because people want to know what impact they're having and how they're reducing their impact, essentially. So this is a really kind of, as you said, value added objective to get involved with. So you can do it completely alongside your full-time role, but it will also help you network with other teams and help towards making you indispensable to the company as well. So there's some really easy things that you can start to look at to get involved with. So does your company have a green team at all? Is there kind of a collection of people from different offices who come together on a quarterly basis to discuss different ideas of how they can support environmental charities or make a difference by getting involved in Earth Hour, for example, which is where everyone can turn their lights off for an hour. So the main thing is to find out who is responsible or in charge of leading this for your company, because 9 times out of 10 they will want some help. So if you can help them, they will really appreciate that. And if you don't have a green team or something similar in your business, then it's a really, really good thing for you to set up. And it can be your idea and you can lead it as you want to. And we can go into more detail on this if anybody wants to ask any specific questions on this call or after. And to go alongside with that, it's to think about having a continuous message. So you want to perhaps think about a calendar of events. So for example, in January, you can talk about Veganuary and how that can help the planet. And it's just about finding the methods of communication in your business. So do you have digital bulletin boards, for example? Can you email out to specific mailing groups and just try and see what makes people tick? What kind of makes something, yes, I want to get involved with that, or no, that's not really for me. And there's really simple things you can do as well. So you could pull together a document advising people how they can work sustainably from home. You can get hold of your company documents, such as your energy policy, or if you have a sustainability strategy or something like that, and see what your company is trying to achieve and how you can feed into that. Because it's quite a niche area, I suppose. And the more effort you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. So when I started, I didn't know what scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions were. I didn't really know much about science-based targets, but there's lots of free information available in the form of webinars, YouTube videos, anything like that. So it's just about educating yourself. If you get like 10 minutes to listen to a podcast or something. As I mentioned before, the Chancery Lane project, if you work for a law firm, or if you work with an in-house counsel in your company, then definitely reach out to them because they're a great pillar of support for you. And I suppose it's just about finding out a little bit more as to whether or not your company is measuring its carbon footprint at all. Do you have anything? Because there should be something for most companies, and that's where you can kind of help to streamline the process. So great, we are recording gas, electricity and water data, but are we looking at waste? Are we looking at recycling? Are we looking at food waste? Are we looking at different recycling streams? Are we looking at waste, which is electrical waste? So it's just a little bit of like a fact-finding mission, I think, first to kind of get yourself started.
Yeah, it sounds like an absolute minefield when you think about it. You know, we make small steps to be able to get to where we need to, and everyone, I guess, has had to start. I'm just out of interest. I don't know if you want to, you can just use the raise hand reaction. But how many of you on this call today do you have a part to play within your sustainability group? You know, or if you could do a show of hands, if you do have anything to do with the sustainability group that you might have in the business, that would be interesting to see.
Or even if you have one.
Yeah, and do you have one? Yeah, so a few of you. Yeah. So I think it's really interesting. I think it's a great topic for people to get more involved in. But I would also, my suggestion would be as well, that if there are a collection of PAs that are working in an office, that's a really great community to start going with in the first place, you know, and bringing them into the fold. I think sometimes it's difficult to get buy-in from a lot of different people and different departments. So sometimes maybe starting with the core community that are in there with the PAs could be a really great opportunity to do that, and also builds the relationships then within the business as well.
Yeah, and this is a great platform as well, because you're already talking to people from different companies. By joining this call, you've kind of shown that it might be something you're thinking about finding out a little bit more about or getting involved with. So you can speak to other people and say, you know, I had an idea of a green team. Do you have one? How did you get it set up? How often do you meet? That kind of thing. So it's just about using the resources that are available to you.
No, 100%. Well, if any of you've got any questions, please pop them in the chat box. So if you want to take yourself off mute and ask any questions, you're very welcome. Just so we know, Fiona, if anybody would like to get in contact with you, are you happy to have a chat with them if they've got any particular questions at all?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's super overwhelming. Just sustainability as a topic is huge. And it might be the case that you want to focus on something really specific. So, for example, if you are an independent PA, you might want to start thinking about adding this to your website now. So you are a responsible business. And so there's so many different things you could look at. And also I do realize it's lunchtime. So, you know, you might just want to go and get some lunch, because I'm easily distracted by lunchtime as well. So yeah, I mean, the lines of communication are always open, and it might be the case that there's nothing really on the agenda right now, but in a couple of months' time, or you know, with the new financial year or something, you might think, oh, actually, I'd like to look at this now.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you. So before we wrap up then this afternoon, has anybody got any final questions for Fiona? Oh, brilliant. Okay, fantastic. So I just would like to say massive congratulations again to you, Fiona. You've achieved so much over the last few years, and whilst obviously, you know, 2020 has been a really challenging year, it sounds like you're doing everything you possibly can to get everybody back on track with sustainability on as well. So thank you so much for gifting your time today. Really grateful. Thank you so much to everybody else that's joined the call today. Really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you so much,
guys.
Dan.
Right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.